Hello guys, this is Bharat and welcome back to this session in which I am going to talk about Python functions in detail. In our last video, we learned about Python functions, we learned about their definitions, how to create them and how to define them. We will learn about practical implementations of functions. Also today we will learn about return value in Python. So quickly let's get started. Let's see agenda for today's discussion. First of all, we will quickly discuss what is a Python function. Although I have already told in my previous video, but here we will recall about functions and we will quickly see what are types of functions and we will see creating a function. Then I will tell you how to call a function and gets their implementations. Then we will learn about arguments in functions and also we will discuss parameters and we will also discuss what are the difference between arguments and parameters in a function. And at last, I will sum up this session with return value in function. So I hope you guys are clear with the agenda and I suggest you to subscribe this channel for latest videos and updates. Now without wasting time, let's see what are functions. So a function is a group of related statements that perform a specific task. Functions make it more organized and manageable. It also avoids repetition and makes the code reusable. Now let's see types of functions. We have two types of functions in Python. First are built-in functions and second is user-defined functions. So built-in function is a function which is already defined by the Python interpreter, or we can say it is already defined in Python library. And then we have user-defined function. It is a function which is defined by a programmer, or we can say we define it while doing the coding. Let's see how to create a user-defined function. In Python, a function is defined using the def keyword. We always use the def keyword to define a function in Python. So the syntax to create a function is first we will write the def keyword, then we will give the function name that defines the best working of the function. Then we will use round brackets and the colon. And below that, after giving the indentation, we will define the working and implementation of the function. Let's see how to call a function. In Python, a function is called with function name. It is pretty simple, right? If you want to call a function, just write the function name and round brackets. Let's see the syntax. Suppose this is my function that is created above in my program using def keyword and the name of my function is my underscore fun and there is some function body in that. It doesn't matter what is all written in that. Suppose we have written some lines of code into my fun function. Now here comes the calling of function. Now we have called the function using the name of my function that is my underscore fun. That's it. When we call this function will be called by the interpreter and the working function or we can say the implementation of the code will be executed line by line by the interpreter. I hope you guys are clear with the calling and defining of the function. Now let's try to create a function practically and then we will call a function. So here I am in my PyCharm. This is my editor. Now here we will create a function. So to create a function we always use the def keyword and I'm also going to write def. Then we will write a function name. Let's take a function name as sum, then round brackets and colon. After the indentation, we will write our function definition. So my sum function is used to print sum of 10 and 20. That's it. So this is a basic function I have created. Now let's call this function. So I am commenting here a call a function. So now to call this function, you have to simply write the name of my function. So the name of my function is sum. So let's write sum and the round brackets. That's it. Now let's run this code. Run functions. See, it has printed 30 as I have called my function. Suppose I do not call my function. Let me comment it. My this call is commented. Now let's see it will run or not. Let's run it again. See, our function is not run. The interpreter has not run our function because we haven't called our function yet. So it is necessary to call a function to apply its implementation into our code. Suppose if I change my numbers here and let's run it again. It has also printed the sum of values. I have given different values here. So this is the basic creation of function, and then we have the calling of function. This is the simplest example. Now let's move to our next topic, that is docstrings in functions. So what is a docstring? The first string after the function header is called as the docstring. So basically we write our first string after into the function declaration that is known as docstring. And docstring is short for documentation string that well defines the working of the function. So it is briefly used to explain what a function does. Although it is optional, but documentation is a good programming practice. As a programmer, we have to follow programming practice. Let's apply it practically. Let's write a docstring to our function. So this is my docstring. I have taken a string as comment. I will write here this function sums all the values. So this is all a docstring is. Docstring is only used to write or explain what a function does. If I run this, our docstring will not be compiled. That means our docstring is never being executed by the function or by the Python interpreter. So now you will say, what is the use of this docstring to write here? So basically the docstring is only used to remember what a function explains or what a function implements into our program. Now let's move to the deeper into the functions. Now let's run what are arguments and parameters in Python functions. So we can also pass some information into our functions. So these informations are known as Python arguments, or we can say Python functions arguments. Arguments are specified after the function name inside the parentheses. Parentheses are the round brackets, and we always write our arguments into that round brackets. So you can also add as many as arguments you want and just only need to separate them with a comma. Let's try to implement this. Suppose I don't want to add default values. I will write the values here 10, 20, 30. So if I am writing some arguments here in calling of a function, then I need to accept these arguments into some variables or some object. So I will create a, b, c. So these a, b and c variables will accept my three values as 10, 20 and 30 respectively. And I will add them here and will be printed on our screen. Let's run it. See, it has printed 60. So we do not need to change here in our function declaration. We will always change some values if we want to change in our function calling. Now, one thing to remember, we always write the same number of arguments as we have already given in our function definition. If they do not match, then the error will come. You can see that here. It takes three positional arguments, but six were given. So here I have given six arguments, but only I'm expecting 3 arguments here. So I have to take more arguments here to sum up them. Okay guys, you clear? So this will print my sum. Now suppose I do not want to give so many variables here. So we can also pass a list of elements, like let's create it a list, and we will only define a variable as a here. And now I have to start a loop for x in a, and let me take a variable sum, and this sum will take the values as x plus sum. Okay guys, and at last we will print the sum of values. Let's run it. Okay, local variable sum is not defined. Oh sorry, cannot take a variable and function name as same. I have to write some different name for this variable. So let's write x equals to 0, just to create a variable before we use it. This is my code. I can give as many as arguments I want here, and also I can give only one value. It will give me 1 as an addition, and I can also give as many as arguments I want. If I want 4 elements to give, I can give 4. If I want 100 to give, I can give as many as argument I want. I do not need to accept more variables here, as I have a list here. So we do not need to write more variables to accept this. Now let's move to our next topic, that is return value in function. In Python, to let a function return a value, we use the return statement. The concept of return value is that if we want our function to return us something to our interpreter, so we always use a return statement. Now to write a return statement, we have a syntax. We have created our simple function, and after the function body, at last of the function, I have written some value. So when I call this function, the interpreter will execute the function step by step, and at last it will return some value back to me. Let's practically implement it. Suppose I do not want to print the sum here, so I can also return sum equals to, and I will write s. So this will be the value that will be returned by this sum function. It will not print anything here in this function. It will just return back here, and let me take a variable as z here, and we will store this value into this z variable, and at last I will print this variable z. Let's run it. See, it has printed sum 1719. So guys, this is all for today. We have learned about what is a function, how to create a function, how to call a function, and then we have learned about arguments and parameters in function. Then we have also learned about return value in function. This is all for today, and thank you for your attention. I hope you guys are clear with today's topic, and do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel.